That morning when I stepped outside, I froze. Across 3 panels of my brand-new black aluminum fence in dripping red spray paint, the word "criminal" screamed back at me. My stomach dropped. My hands shook. This wasn't a prank, this was war. And the worst part had happened the night before my scheduled hearing with the HOA. Someone wanted to humiliate me, to make me crack, to turn me into the villain of my own neighborhood. They had no idea I was about to flip the script. When I bought that house, I thought I was buying peace. I'd worked my ass off for years, climbed the ladder at my job, saved every penny, and finally signed the papers on what felt like my American dream. A modest place in a quiet suburban neighborhood with a backyard big enough for a sparkling in-ground pool. The pool was my prize, my sanctuary, the reward for every long night and early morning. I pictured barbecues with friends, lazy summer afternoons with a book, maybe even the sound of kids splashing someday. What I didn't picture was my new neighbor, Karen Thompson, standing on her manicured lawn the day I moved in, sneering at me like I was trash blowing in from the highway. "Are you lost? The public pool's 5 miles that way with the rest of your people." That was my welcome. No cookies, no hi. Welcome to the neighborhood, just venom shot across the hedges like a poisoned dart. I stood there sweating through my shirt, balancing a heavy box of books, wondering if I'd stepped into a time machine back to the 1950s. Her face said it all, pure disgust. I'm not confrontational by nature. My instinct is always to keep the peace, de-escalate. But there was no middle ground here. I set the box down, wiped the sweat off my brow, and forced a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach my eyes. "No, ma'am. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Just bought the place." Her jaw worked. She sputtered, then turned on her heel and slammed her door. And I remember thinking, well, this is going to be fun. It only took a week for the real nightmare to walk through my yard, her son Kyle. Late teens, maybe 20, bleach blonde hair, that entitled swagger you can smell a mile away. I caught him in my pool like it was his own personal resort. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked annoyed that I dared to interrupt his sunbathing. "This is private property," I told him. He smirked. "My mom said it was fine." Of course she did. I told him to leave. He rolled his eyes, took his sweet time drying off with the towel he'd left on my chair, and sauntered back through the hedge. No apology, just arrogance. I knew in my gut this wouldn't stop here. Sure enough, the next weekend I came home from the hardware store and heard loud music pounding from my backyard. I rounded the corner and nearly fainted. 6 kids splashing in my pool wrappers and soda cans all over the patio, one of them grilling hot dogs on my brand-new grill. They'd thrown a full-blown pool party on my property. I saw red. "Everybody out now," I roared. The whole crowd froze. Kyle, beer in hand, pulled himself out of the pool and puffed up his chest like he owned the place. "What's your problem, old man?" I'm 32, but I stepped up until we were eye to eye. "My problem is a dozen strangers trespassing on my property. This is your last warning. Next time I call the cops." He tried to play it cool, but I saw the flicker of fear at the word police. He grabbed his stuff, muttering, and they all slunk out, leaving trash everywhere. My sanctuary felt contaminated. That night I sat staring at the mess, realizing polite requests weren't going to cut it. I needed a wall, a barrier they couldn't ignore. So I hired a crew and built a 6-foot aluminum fence by the book, exactly to HOA bylaws. The day the truck unloaded panels of black steel. I swear the sound of the post hole digger was music to my ears. Until, of course, Karen stormed out in her silk robe. "You can't put up a fortress here," she shrieked. "That's our view. You'll ruin property values." I gave her a little wave from my window, sipped my coffee, and let the crew keep working. That only made her madder. She pounded on my door, face purple. "You're doing this just to spite us." "No," I said, calm but firm. "I'm doing this so I can enjoy the property I paid for. The fence stays." And I shut the door. 3 days later, the fence was finished tall and gleaming locked gates on either side. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Until Saturday morning, when I opened my mailbox. An official HOA complaint. They claimed I'd built an unapproved structure and had to attend a hearing. My stomach nodded. I had followed the rules. I knew it. But Karen was using the HOA like a weapon. Then came the cease and desist letter from her lawyer accusing me of creating a nuisance and causing her emotional distress. My fence was hostile. My fence, I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd overreacted if I was the aggressor. Was I turning my dream home into a fortress and alienating everyone around me? Was I the problem? But every time I thought about backing down, I saw Kyle lounging in my chair, dripping pool water on my patio, sneering at me like I was nothing. That image hardened me. No, I wasn't wrong. I was defending my home. I hired a lawyer, gathered documents, bylaws, photos, everything. If she wanted a war of paperwork, I'd give her one. Then came the graffiti. Criminal. Huge red, impossible to ignore. I stood under the porch light at midnight, fists shaking, wanting to storm over and pound on their door. But that's what they wanted. For me to explode to prove their narrative. So, instead, I grabbed my phone, took pictures, called the non-emergency police line, and filed a report. And the next day I called a security company. I installed cameras front, back, both sides. Night vision, cloud backup live feed on my phone. If they touched my property again, I'd have undeniable proof. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, just past 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I rolled over, opened the feed, and there he was. Kyle Hoodie pulled up creeping along the fence with a backpack. My pulse spiked. He pulled out a jug of industrial weed killer and started pouring it along the base of the fence, killing a strip of my lawn. Smug little vandal thought he was clever, but every second was being recorded in crisp HD. I didn't move, didn't shout. I just watched him destroy himself on camera. As soon as he slunk back through the hedge, I backed up the file, emailed it to myself, and slept with a grin for the first time in months. The next morning, I sent the video to the HOA board and the police. By noon, the HOA president Bob called me stammering apologies. That evening, they held an emergency meeting, and I walked in with the calm of a man holding all the cards. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors who'd been giving me cold shoulders were now curious, even sympathetic. Karen and Kyle sat across the room, pale and stiff. Bob cleared his throat. The complaint against Mr. Miller is dismissed. We have reviewed video evidence of deliberate vandalism by your son. The room buzzed with whispers. Then, neighbors piled on complaints about speeding parties, years of disrespect. The tide turned, and it turned fast. Karen's face burned crimson. Kyle wouldn't lift his eyes. Bob announced a $1,000 fine, a formal censure, and a warning of further legal action. Then he looked at me. "Do you have anything you'd like to add?" I stood, heart pounding, but voice steady. "No. I think everything's been said. I just want to live in peace." And I sat back down. The message was clear. I wasn't the aggressor. I was the man who fought for his right to his own home. Karen slumped in her chair. Kyle stared at the floor. Their power was gone, not because I shouted louder, but because the truth was undeniable. And that's where the story ends. Not with barbecues, not with parties, not with celebration. Just with the image burned into my memory. Karen shrinking in her seat. Kyle, trembling, the HOA finally on my side, and the word criminal no longer painted on my fence but etched onto their reputation instead. Sometimes the only way to protect your peace is to build a wall and make damn sure you've got the evidence to defend it.